Halloween night had always been Sarah's favorite. Candles flickering in carved pumpkins, laughter echoing down Maple Street, and the doorbell ringing every few minutes with little ghosts and superheroes shouting, "Trick or treat!" But at 11:47 p.m., when the last porch light had gone out and the street was silent, her doorbell rang again. She hesitated. Through the peephole she saw a small child in a torn clown costume, silent, head tilted. Thinking it was a late trick-or-treater, Sarah smiled and opened the door. The air turned cold. The child whispered, "You weren't supposed to open it." Then the lights flickered, and the street outside was gone. The town of Maplewood was the kind of place people forgot existed. Old trees arched over quiet streets, their twisted branches forming tunnels of orange and gold every October. Every year, neighbors went all out for Halloween. Fog machines, haunted lawns, kids running from house to house, laughing under a pale moon. Sarah had lived on Maple Street for just 3 months. She'd moved into the white Victorian house at the end of the cul-de-sac, a little too big for her, but cheap enough to make her suspicious. Probably just the market, she'd told herself, ignoring the faint smell of damp wood that lingered in the walls. Tonight, she wanted to feel normal. She baked pumpkin cookies, set out bowls of candy, and lit 3 candles inside a smiling jack-o'-lantern. The flickering light cast playful shadows across her living room. She'd just turned 32. Her last Halloween had been spent in a hospital waiting room, holding her mother's hand while machines beeped in the background. But tonight, she wanted to start over. New house, new neighborhood, new life. The first knock came at 6:30 p.m. A group of kids in skeleton masks screamed, "Trick or treat!" and ran away giggling after getting their candy. Sarah laughed, genuinely for the first time in months. As the night went on, the doorbell became music. Witches, vampires, princesses, all came and went, their laughter fading into the cool air. By 10:30, the street grew quieter. Porch lights turned off one by one. Sarah started cleaning up, humming softly to the tune of an old Halloween song playing from her phone. Then she heard it. A soft knock 3 times. Slow, deliberate. She frowned, glancing at the clock, 11:47 p.m. Probably some teenagers pulling a prank, she muttered. Still, she peeked through the peephole. A small figure stood on her porch, a child in a clown costume holding a faded candy bucket. The costume looked wrong. The colors were muted, like it had been soaked in dirty water. The child's head hung slightly to the side, unmoving. "Hey there," Sarah called through the door, forcing cheer into her voice. "You're out late, huh?" No answer. She hesitated, then sighed. "All right, last candy of the night," she said, unlocking the latch. When she opened the door, cold air rushed in, so sharp it made her skin prickle. The child slowly lifted its head. The mask, if it was a mask, looked old. The painted smile cracked and peeling. The child's voice was soft. "You weren't supposed to open it." Before Sarah could respond, the porch light flickered and went out. Darkness. Her breath quickened. "What did you say?" she whispered, stepping back. But the porch was empty now. The child, gone. The wind picked up, howling down the street, scattering leaves against her door. Sarah slammed it shut, heart racing. She checked the window. The street outside was strangely still. No cars, no porch lights. Not even the glow of distant houses. It looked drained, like someone had pulled the life out of the neighborhood. Trying to steady herself, she locked the door and turned off the music. The silence pressed in heavy, unnatural. Her phone flickered. No signal. Then the sound came again. Ding-dong. She froze. Slowly, she turned back toward the door. Through the frosted glass, she could see a faint outline. 3 figures now. All small. All still, her mind raced. Maybe kids. Maybe parents catching up late. She inched closer. "Hello?" No response. Then, a whisper right by her ear. "They're not here for candy." Sarah spun around, but no one was there. Her living room felt wrong, stretched, warped, like she was seeing it through water. The air shimmered faintly. She grabbed her phone again, flashlight trembling in her hand. The glow caught something on the wall near the entryway. Handprints. Small, dark, smeared down toward the floor. Her throat tightened. "What the hell?" She stumbled back and tripped over her rug. The light from her phone wavered, landing on the jack-o'-lantern by the window. Its grin had changed. The carved mouth, which she swore she'd made smiling, now twisted into a jagged sneer. Something dripped from its teeth. Sarah's heart thundered in her chest. "It's just my imagination," she whispered. But the air said otherwise. The wind outside stopped completely. The house went still, like the world was holding its breath. She turned toward the hallway leading to the back door when the front door slammed open behind her. The child stood there again. No longer alone. Two others flanked it, one in a witch costume, the other in a tattered ghost sheet. Their faces were pale, waxy, eyes sunken like dried marbles. The clown child spoke again, but its voice was deeper now, layered with echoes. "You opened the door. Now it's your turn to walk through." Sarah backed away, hands trembling. "Get out of my house!" she screamed. But her voice sounded muffled, distant. The witch tilted her head, smiling faintly. "It's not your house anymore." Before Sarah could react, all three children began walking forward in perfect unison. Their footsteps didn't make a sound. The air rippled again. For a brief moment she could see something behind them, a vast, dark hallway stretching into nothingness, lined with flickering pumpkins that whispered. She blinked, and it was gone. The children stopped at her feet. The ghost child reached into its candy bucket and pulled out something glinting under the dim light, a rusted key. It dropped it onto the floor with a soft clang. Sarah stared at it, frozen. The key was old, engraved with something she couldn't read. "What do you want?" she whispered. The clown child raised a finger and pointed behind her. Sarah turned, slowly, toward the mirror hanging on the far wall. For a second, she thought she saw her reflection. But it wasn't hers. It was a woman standing in the same spot, wearing Sarah's clothes, eyes hollow, mouth open in a silent scream. Then the reflection reached out, from inside the glass, and pressed its palm against the surface. A whisper filled the house. "Let us in." "Or stay with us." Sarah stumbled back, her breathing ragged. The children were gone. The door was closed. The house was normal again, almost. Her jack-o'-lantern still flickered, but its light now glowed an eerie blue. Sarah backed into a corner, clutching her phone, whispering to herself, "It's just a dream. It's just a dream." Then her phone buzzed. A notification appeared on the screen. New message. Mom. Don't open the door again. Her breath hitched. Her mother had been dead for a year. The room grew colder. The lights dimmed again. Outside, the doorbell rang once more. Ding-dong. The doorbell's chime hung in the air like an echo that refused to fade. Sarah stood frozen, her heart pounding so loudly she could almost hear it reverberate through the floorboards. The message on her phone still glowed faintly. Mom, don't open the door again. Her thumb trembled as she tapped it, but the message vanished before she could screenshot it. Gone, as if it had never been there. The house was silent except for the low hum of her refrigerator. But beneath that hum there was something else. A soft, rhythmic tapping. Tap, tap, tap. It sounded like small hands brushing against glass. She swallowed hard, turning toward the sound. The window near the front door had fogged up, though the air wasn't cold enough for condensation. Slowly she walked closer, every instinct screaming to run. On the fogged glass, 3 handprints appeared, small, child-sized. And then, letters began to form beneath them, drawn from inside the glass. Come out, Sarah stumbled back. No, 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 she whispered, shaking her head. This isn't happening. Her phone buzzed again. This time, the message was from an unknown number. You opened their door. Now they want you to see. Her breath caught. Who is this? She typed, hands trembling. No reply. The doorbell rang again. But this time the sound was different, slower, deeper, like someone dragging their hand across the chime instead of pressing it. Sarah grabbed a kitchen knife and backed toward the hallway. Her mind raced. Maybe this was a prank. Maybe some local kids had set up cameras. Maybe she'd wake up any second. The lights flickered. The jack-o'-lantern on her windowsill went out, and from the darkness came the faintest whisper. Sarah. She froze. The voice wasn't a child's anymore. It was older, familiar. So hauntingly familiar, her knees almost buckled. It was her mother's voice. "Mom?" she whispered into the shadows. "Mom, where are you?" Silence. Then, soft footsteps behind her. Sarah spun around, knife raised. Nothing. Only her reflection in the hallway mirror, trembling. But as she looked closer, the reflection wasn't trembling. It was smiling. Slowly. Unnaturally. "Stop it," she hissed, backing away. "You're not real." Her reflection's mouth moved on its own. "You let them in." The words were barely audible, but she heard them. Her phone buzzed again. She looked down. The screen showed her front door camera feed. Only the feed was static-filled, and through the blur she could make out shapes. Small figures standing still on the porch. 3, 4, 5 now. The feed glitched. For half a second she saw something else. A wide, empty street lined with pumpkins that flickered blue. In the distance, a figure in a long black cloak holding what looked like an old-fashioned lantern. The screen went black. Sarah dropped the phone, panic clawing up her throat. "This can't be real," she whispered, and then a loud knock. Not at the front door. From upstairs, her blood ran cold. She stared at the ceiling, heart hammering. The sound came again, this time heavier. Something was walking across her bedroom floor. With shaking hands, she turned off the main lights and grabbed a flashlight. The house was eerily still, but she could feel it. Something watching, waiting. She crept up the staircase, the wooden steps creaking under her feet. The beam of her flashlight wavered across the walls, landing on family photos left by the previous owner. Smiling faces from another decade. Children in Halloween costumes. Her breath hitched as she looked closer. The same costumes, a clown, a witch, a ghost. She blinked, her throat tightening. No, that's not possible. She turned the frame over, written on the back in faded ink. Maple Street Halloween. 89, and beneath it, the night they disappeared. A cold wind brushed her neck. She turned. Nothing. Then came a faint, childlike giggle. Her flashlight flickered, then steadied on the end of the hallway. Her bedroom door stood open. She knew she'd closed it earlier. "Who's there?" she called, trying to sound firm, but her voice trembled. Silence. She stepped forward. The air grew colder with each step. When she reached the doorway, she felt it. Something moving in the dark, slow and deliberate. She lifted the flashlight. The 3 children stood in the center of the room. Their costumes were dirt-stained, their skin grayish, eyes hollow. "Why me?" she whispered, tears stinging her eyes. The clown tilted its head. "You bought the house." Sarah shook her head. "That doesn't mean you opened the door," the ghost interrupted softly. "We couldn't come through until someone did." Sarah's grip on the knife tightened. "What door?" "I opened the front." "Not that one," the witch said. "The one below." Sarah frowned, her voice barely a whisper. "Below?" The clown stepped forward. "In the cellar." The word chilled her to the bone. The realtor had mentioned a basement, sealed years ago after a flood. Sarah had never checked. "I didn't open any cellar," she said, shaking her head. But the clown smiled, its lips splitting too wide. "You will," the room shuddered. The wallpaper peeled back in strips as if unseen hands were tearing it. A deep, low groan echoed through the floorboards. Sarah screamed and bolted down the stairs. Her flashlight beam jerked wildly across the walls, revealing flickering shadows that seemed to move on their own. She reached the kitchen, panting, and grabbed her phone again. Still no signal, no Wi-Fi. The clock on the oven blinked 11:47, the same time it had been since she first opened the door. The world hadn't moved forward. A loud thud came from beneath the floor. Then another. Then a dragging sound, like something heavy scraping across concrete. Her stomach turned. She didn't want to look. She didn't want to believe. But then she saw it, the small rug near the pantry shifting, as if something beneath it was breathing. "No," she whispered, backing away. "No, please!" The rug flipped on its own, revealing a square metal hatch in the floor. Rusted, bolted shut. The sound came again. Knock, knock. Knock! From underneath. Sarah stumbled back, pressing her hand against her mouth. The phone in her pocket buzzed again, vibrating violently. She pulled it out. Unknown number. It's your turn to open their door. Her fingers shook as she dropped the phone to the floor. The hatch began to rattle. Dust fell from the ceiling. Then the bolts started to turn one by one as if invisible hands were loosening them. Sarah screamed, running to the front door. She twisted the knob. It wouldn't move. The lock was frozen solid, the windows sealed. The lights flickering uncontrollably. The world outside, the same endless stillness. Behind her, the hatch creaked open. Cold, black air poured out, carrying with it a faint sound, like children laughing underwater. Sarah turned, tears streaking her cheeks. "What do you want from me?" From the darkness below, the clown's voice answered, though all three children stood still behind her. "We want you to remember." "Remember what?" The house groaned again. The walls pulsed, and the kitchen light exploded in a shower of sparks. In the flickering darkness, she saw something crawling up from the cellar, a shape too large to be human, its limbs bending at wrong angles, its face hidden beneath a rotted mask. Sarah backed against the wall, the knife trembling in her hand. "Stay away from me." The shape stopped halfway out of the hatch, its head twisting toward her. The mask, a cracked porcelain clown face, had a jagged smile carved into it. The voice that came from beneath it was not human. "You lived here before." Sarah shook her head violently. "No, I didn't. I just moved here." The air shimmered, and suddenly she saw flashes, images, not her own. A little girl running through the same hallway, a mother screaming near the cellar, the sound of a door slamming, locking from the outside, and then the little girl's face. It was hers. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The images disappeared, leaving only darkness. The clown climbed further out, its voice now whispering directly into her mind. "You left us here." "You forgot." She dropped the knife, falling to her knees. "No, I was adopted. My mother, she never told me." The witch's voice echoed softly behind her. "She tried to save you," the ghost added, "but you left before she could close it again." Sarah looked up, eyes wide. "Close what?" The clown's grin widened. "The door!" And with that, the hatch burst open completely. A rush of black wind filled the room, extinguishing every light. The laughter grew louder, overlapping with whispers and screams. Sarah felt herself being pulled toward the open cellar, the floor beneath her trembling like a heartbeat. She clawed at the floorboards, screaming. But the force was too strong. Then, just before she was dragged under, she heard a voice, calm and distant. Her mother's voice again. "Don't open it this time, Sarah, please." Everything went black. Sarah's eyes flew open to darkness, thick, suffocating, endless. She was lying on cold stone, the air damp and heavy, echoing with whispers that weren't words but feelings, regret, hunger, loss. The scent of wet earth filled her lungs. She sat up slowly, her breath coming in shallow bursts. The flashlight was gone. So was her phone. Only faint, bluish light shimmered from somewhere ahead, pulsing like a heartbeat. Where am I? The realization came with a shiver. The cellar. She looked up. The ceiling above wasn't wood anymore. It was shifting, liquid-like, reflecting shapes that seemed to move of their own accord. She could see fragments of her kitchen, distorted, as though viewed from the other side of a mirror. A sound echoed through the vastness. Children's laughter, faint at first, then closer. "Sarah," the voices whispered. "We waited so long." She turned slowly. The three children stood at the far end of the cellar, their faces faintly glowing in the blue light. Behind them loomed the thing she had glimpsed before, the shape. It was taller now, faceless, cloaked in shadow that seemed to breathe. Sarah's voice cracked. "What are you?" The clown child stepped forward. "We were you once." The words made no sense. "What do you mean?" The witch's eyes shimmered like glass. "We were the ones you left." Sarah shook her head. "No, I didn't, but memories came rushing back like waves breaking through a dam, images that didn't belong to this life but to something older, deeper." She saw herself as a small child, laughing as her mother carried her down the same cellar steps. The same three children were with her, giggling, holding hands. Her mother's voice echoed in her mind, "Don't open it unless I'm with you." Then came the knock. The door below, wooden, ancient, carved with strange marks, had begun to shake. She remembered the children whispering, "It wants to play." And she, small, curious, had reached out and turned the key. The memory splintered. The light flickered. The ground beneath her pulsed. Sarah fell to her knees, clutching her head. "No, I was just a kid. I didn't know." The shadow behind the children moved. When it spoke, its voice wasn't sound. It was pressure, vibrating in her bones. "You opened the gate between." The words hung heavy in the air. Sarah looked up, trembling. "Then tell me how to close it." The clown tilted its head. "You can't close what you became part of." The blue light grew stronger, illuminating the carvings on the walls, symbols, hundreds of them, circling the cellar like scars. In the center of the floor, where Sarah sat, the pattern formed a door-shaped outline, glowing faintly beneath her hands. The witch whispered. It was sealed with a name. Sarah frowned. "What name?" All three children spoke in unison. "Yours." Her pulse quickened. The walls groaned. The light flickered violently. She could feel the thing behind them stirring, stretching like something awakening after a long sleep. The ground cracked beneath her, blue light spilling through. Shadows climbed her arms like smoke. "Stop!" she screamed. "I didn't mean to. I didn't know." The clown's face softened for a moment, the faintest trace of sadness in its voice. "Neither did we." Then the entity rose. It wasn't a person. It was the absence of one. The shape of something that had no beginning or end, its outline rippling like heat. Its presence made the cellar walls curl inward, as though reality itself was bending to accommodate it. Sarah stumbled backward, shielding her eyes. "What do you want from me?" The air answered, thick and vibrating. "Return." She realized then it didn't want to hurt her. It wanted her to come back, to stay, to keep the door open so it could feed on both worlds. "No," she whispered, standing, voice trembling but stronger now. "Not again." She remembered the key, the rusted one the ghost had dropped. She pulled it from her pocket. It burned cold in her palm, pulsing with the same eerie blue light as the carvings on the floor. The children's faces turned fearful. "Sarah, if you close it, we'll vanish." Tears stung her eyes. "You were never supposed to stay here." The clown shook its head. "We can't go back." "I'll set you free," she said softly. The floor rumbled. The blue glow intensified. The shadow screamed, not with sound, but with a wave of force that made her ears ring. Sarah dropped to her knees, pressing the key into the glowing outline on the floor. The metal sank like liquid, fusing with the light. The carvings ignited, lines of blue fire racing around the room. The entity howled. The air grew heavy, crushing, pressing her down. Her vision blurred, and she saw flashes again. Her mother standing at the top of the stairs, whispering words she couldn't hear. The door closing, the sound of sobbing children fading into silence. Sarah screamed, twisting the key with both hands. The light exploded outward, engulfing everything. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then, stillness. When she opened her eyes, she was lying on her kitchen floor. Morning sunlight streamed through the window. The jack-o'-lanterns outside were still, their flames long dead. The clock on the oven read 7:02 a.m. Sarah sat up slowly, her throat raw, her mind fogged. Had it been a dream? Her phone buzzed beside her. A new message. Unknown number. "Thank you." She exhaled shakily, tears filling her eyes. It was over. The house was quiet, warm, real again. She stood and looked around. Everything was where it should be. No cracks, no symbols, no blue light. Just her home. But when she turned toward the door to check the porch, she froze. The candy bowl sat where she'd left it. And next to it, 3 small masks. A clown, a witch, a ghost. Her breath hitched. Then the doorbell rang. Ding! Dong! Sarah's eyes darted to the window. The street outside was empty. No children. No sunlight. Only fog rolling across the lawns like smoke. Her phone buzzed one last time. "Mom, don't open it." The lights flickered. The jack-o'-lanterns reignited, glowing blue, and the doorbell rang again. Ding! Dong! The house had fallen silent again. Sarah stood still, staring at the door as the last echo of the doorbell faded into the fog. Her hand trembled on the doorknob, her mind begging her to listen to her mother's message. Don't open it. Her heart wanted to believe it was over. That she'd sealed whatever had crawled up from that cellar. That the light pouring through the windows wasn't just another trick of the dark, but there was something about the air. Too still, too clean, too empty. She glanced at the masks lying by the candy bowl. They looked harmless now, faded and soft with age. For a fleeting second, she thought she saw them twitch, but when she blinked, they were still. It's over, she told herself. She turned away from the door and went to the sink, running water just to hear the sound of something normal. The rush of it almost felt comforting. Then she noticed it, her reflection in the kitchen window. It wasn't following her movements. Sarah froze. Slowly, she lifted her hand. Her reflection didn't. It just stared at her, eyes wide and unblinking, a faint smile spreading across its face. The water gurgled, the faucet sputtered. The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied. When Sarah looked back, her reflection was gone. Just her. The sound of the doorbell came again. Ding. Dump. But this time softer, almost polite. She backed away from the sink. No, she whispered. I'm not opening it. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Another message. Unknown number. You forgot one. Her blood ran cold. One what? She whispered aloud, her voice trembling. The phone buzzed again. Door. Her pulse spiked. She turned, scanning the kitchen. Every cabinet, every doorway, every crack in the wall looked suddenly suspicious. Then she remembered. The mirror in the hallway, the one where her reflection had smiled first. Slowly, she walked toward it. Each step echoed too loudly, as if the floor was amplifying her fear. The mirror waited at the end of the hall, tall and old, framed in carved wood. It had belonged to the house when she moved in. Now its surface rippled faintly, like a pond disturbed by wind. She reached out a shaking hand. Her fingers hovered just above the glass. Please, she whispered, I just want to go home. The surface of the mirror pulsed, and then it answered. A voice, faint but familiar, whispering from the other side. You are home, her breath caught. The reflection that appeared wasn't hers. It was her mother's, but younger, pale, and crying. Mom, Sarah breathed. Mom, what is this place? Why is this happening? Her mother's reflection looked at her with hollow eyes. I tried to close it, but the door always finds the one who opened it first. Sarah shook her head, tears spilling. I closed it. I used the key. The reflection's lips curved into a sorrowful smile. You closed a door. Not the door. Behind the reflection, something moved. Shadows gathered, swirling, forming outlines of figures. Children, dozens of them, holding hands in silence. Sarah stepped back, horror dawning. No. The reflection raised its hand, pressing its palm against the glass. The children mirrored the gesture. It's not just this house, her mother whispered. Every door opened that night became a mirror. Every mirror became a doorway. The realization hit like ice in her veins. Halloween. The night the barrier between worlds was thin. The night she opened the door. And outside, in 100 houses, 100 curious hands had done the same. The mirror pulsed again, brighter this time. The figures behind her mother began pressing closer, their faces stretching the surface of the glass, whispering in unison. Let us in. Sarah stumbled backward. No, I won't. The hallway lights exploded in a shower of sparks. The sound was deafening. When she opened her eyes, the mirror was cracked, but not broken. The reflection inside was no longer her mother. It was her, only this version smiled wider, her eyes darker, her movements lagging behind reality by a heartbeat. The other Sarah leaned forward until her face pressed against the inside of the mirror. Open it, she whispered. I won't, Sarah said through gritted teeth. The reflection tilted its head. You already did. A loud creak echoed from somewhere deep within the house. Then another, like a series of locks turning one after another. She looked around wildly. No, 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 what did I do? The walls began to distort, bulging inward as if something massive pressed from the other side. The floor rippled beneath her feet. Her reflection raised its hand and placed it flat against the glass. Sarah felt heat blooming on her own palm, though she hadn't touched it. Her phone vibrated violently in her pocket. She pulled it out. New message. Mom, don't touch the glass. The words appeared too late. Her reflection's hand slammed against the inside of the mirror, and a spiderweb of cracks exploded across the surface. Sarah screamed as the world around her warped. The air grew thick, sticky, luminous. The mirror's cracks began to spread across the walls, the ceiling, the floor, fracturing reality like breaking ice. And through those cracks, she saw other rooms, other houses, other people staring into mirrors on that same Halloween morning. Their faces twisted in horror, every door, every window, every reflection shimmered with that same blue light. The clown child's voice echoed faintly, everywhere and nowhere. You can't close what's already open. Sarah dropped the phone and stumbled toward the front door. She grabbed the knob and twisted. It moved this time. She yanked it open, but outside wasn't Maple Street. It was endless fog. Faint shapes moved within it, shadows of people walking, whispering, knocking on unseen doors. She saw her own house again, just a few steps away, from another angle. Inside it, through the window, she saw herself standing, frozen, pale, staring out. No, she whispered, voice trembling. No, no, no. The fog began to thicken, creeping closer. Voices whispered from it, soft, pleading, childlike. Trick or treat. Let us in. Don't close the door. Sarah slammed the door shut again and pressed her back against it, sobbing. Stop it! Leave me alone! Silence. Then, her phone buzzed one last time. Unknown number. You shouldn't have closed it from the inside. She frowned through tears, her breath catching. What? The jack-o'-lanterns in her window flickered back to life, glowing with that same eerie blue flame. From the hallway came a faint, rhythmic sound. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate. Coming closer, she lifted her gaze toward the mirror. Her reflection stood there again, but this time, it wasn't behind the glass. It was in the hallway. Smiling, Sarah took a step back. Who are you? The other Sarah tilted her head, same as the clown once did. I'm the one who stayed. And then, before Sarah could move, the reflection walked forward and whispered into her ear. The same words the child had spoken that night. You weren't supposed to open it. The lights went out. Days later, a realtor's sign appeared outside the old Victorian house, for sale. Owner moved out unexpectedly. The listing photos were beautiful. Sunlit rooms, spotless floors, cozy charm. Only one thing was strange. In every mirror, faint blue light shimmered, barely noticeable unless you looked too long. And if you did, you might see a woman standing in the reflection, staring back, waiting. At night, neighbors still swear they hear the faint sound of a doorbell long after midnight, ding, dong, and a soft voice whispering through the wind, you weren't supposed to open it.